this week, Brendan Small announced funding towards that program of, I believe, $1.8 million for election. And also Lucy Wicks, we've announced today another $1 million for that funding. Well, I'm trying to tell you, sorry, what I'm announcing for the federal election. So, anyway, so the key point is this. For early intervention is the key. It is honestly the key, because eventually they get out of jail. You need strong bail laws. You definitely need strong bail laws. There's no two ways about that. And there must be consequences for their actions. It's simple as that. So I'm very keen to hear your ideas and go forward and listen to you. But thank you very much for giving up your time today. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. We are in a run-up to an election, so I guess we expect it in a way. However, we're going to move on to someone who has a lived experience in crime in a deep way. It will be interesting. Adele Graham is a resident of Baddo Bay and one of the organisers of today's forum. She's passionate about community safety, and she has to share with you a story that may enlighten about her own family's dealing in crime. Adele.
Hi, my name is Adele. I've lived on the Central Coast for approximately 15 years. I actually moved up here with my sons when they were young because I wanted a safe area to raise my boys as a single mum. In 2021, I got a notification on my phone, and then another notification, and then another, and then another. And I've picked up my phone because I was out busy and realised I was getting all these notifications through Facebook Messenger and on Facebook. So I've opened up to see what it was, and I discovered a picture of my son along with another young man known to him. And it was on a neighbourhood page, and it was announcing that he was involved in criminal activity. My son was 13 or 14 years old at the time. I want to say, as a parent, it was one of those experiences where I think this has gone flat.
We got batteries.
Oh, good. I'll keep talking. Can everyone hear me?
Nice and loud.
No? Okay, I'll wait.
Okay, take a breather.
Yes. Awesome. Is that better? Is it better if I am in the middle? Yes. Okay. So that's how I found out that my child was in trouble and committing trouble. I found out on Facebook. I can say as a parent it was a very confronting situation to be in. I think emotionally I was pulled in every different direction imaginable, from humiliation and shame to anxiety and fear and wanting to know where my son was at that time because he wasn't with me. Was he in the community? Was he at home safe? Were people going to recognise him? And so on and so forth. At the same time, I look back and I'm like, would I have ever have known that my son was up to no good and effectively was falling into trouble if it was not for that post? I know that it's not something that should be encouraged, but it just, as a parent, I have conflicting reasons like that I'm for and against. My son's crimes, without going too much into detail, they are not these crimes that we are talking about today. He was involved in property damage in the community, and sometime later he was involved in an assault of another child. They were, particularly the second one, was significant. None of them I was proud about. None of them I condone. Obviously, as a parent, I certainly never use the word boys will be boys or kids will be kids. My son was a school leader in Year 6. He was a captain of his football team. He was really popular amongst his peers. I just honestly did not see this coming. There was some social media involved, and I will say that social media does have a part to play as well. We were referred after the property damage to, I believe it's like a youth justice conference, like a small meeting with a youth liaison officer. I will say that I found that quite positive, that experience. It gave not only my son opportunity to speak about his offending, but also as a parent for me to have a conversation with the youth liaison officer about my son and what had been going on for him. Obviously this was not long coming out of COVID and the COVID lock-ins, which had a lot of impact on people's mental health, including young people. He'd also had a meeting with the youth liaison officer about what my son had been experiencing. She actually identified that he was showing symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, and we were giving an emergency referral to children and young persons mental health. That was a really positive experience. My son was able to see a psychiatrist, a psychologist. He was able to get medicated. As a parent, I made sure I engaged with the school. I didn't have to, but I wanted them to know what was going on, and I guess it's a personal choice, but I would suggest to any parent, if your child is having troubles like this, please engage with the school, because they do spend the majority of their time there. They're not actually at home through their childhood. The majority of their time they're at school. So teachers are a part of their caretaking, and I think it's integral that schools also play a role in trying to offer supports to children that are struggling. I think the barrier to that is perhaps a family's own fear or shame around what's going on and the humiliation, and that can sometimes stop them from reaching out. But I have found that although you may need to push and prod a little and a little hard, because there are lots of children at the school and you're usually only advocating for one, that the support can be found through the school as well. So that was the second approach I took. My son was doing really well for a period of time, and I thought that we were completely out of the woods. And then in 2022, he had a significant concussion injury during a football game. He was taken to hospital. He did have a partial seizure on the field. We had a period of rest at home following that. He returned to school. He was displaying some aggressive behaviour, so I kept him back a day. And then he went back to school the next day, and I got a call around home time asking me to come to the school. Long story short, without going into detail, my son had significantly assaulted another child, and that child had to be taken to hospital. It was pretty severe. We were very aware that we were not even going to be engaging with police at this time as a caution. We would be going to court. He was going to be on significant charges. It was a really, really difficult time, and I found our second time we were less supported than we were in the beginning, and I don't know why that was. I have maybe some theories. One, given the nature of what had happened to my son, which police weren't effectively aware of in their investigating. We, under legal advice, were advised not to have an interview with police. We relayed that information on from our solicitor. Police were happy with that, they respected that. That's how my son's rights within the law. However, the significant change at this time was where previously we'd engaged with police and supports had been offered, because of the due legal process of the legal advice being don't engage with police, don't speak with police, no supports were offered. So it was now up to me alone as a mum. And for context, I am a caseworker in community services. I've got about 8 years experience. So I do know that supports and services are out there. I know how to communicate for my son. I know how to advocate for him. And I effectively was caseworking my son for months until this journey was over. I can understand, having seen that, where other families and other parents would fall through the cracks, would give up, would feel overwhelmed, would stick their head in the sand if they're not aware or guided to supports that are very much needed to curb young offending. So that's one of the first things I noticed. The second thing that I noticed was changes in funding, which did impact my son. They were to do with funding around health and mental health. We contacted his psychologist that he'd been engaged with young person's mental health when he first offended, to try and get him back in to speak with the same person. Because that makes sense, right? Teenagers are hard, teenagers are difficult. To get a word out of them, can take a lot. So if your child's struggling and you've managed to engage them with someone and they're having an active conversation and that conversation is showing a positive result and there's trust and there's change, of course as a parent you're going to want to engage them with the same person. And of course they themselves remembering that over a certain age children do have autonomy and they do have the right to say no, and if they do, there's nothing a parent can do to change that. Of course I wanted him to see the same psychologist. He wasn't eligible to see him in a community funded service, so I had to see him in private practice. That cost us a lot, it put me in a lot of financial hardship. I had to take time off work, or rather I didn't have to, but what had happened impacted my health. I wasn't able to work as well as I would have liked to, and I left my position as a result of that, and I focused on my son. It does go to show that change is possible. My son was linked in with RIS, and he was also linked in with the PCYC. So they were both through the school, and I found both of them to be positive. I think it's really positive that young offenders do engage with police in a proactive manner. I don't think it's productive or that it helps to reduce offending if young offenders are only engaging with police after or if they're in trouble. So that was a really positive experience for him. RIS had a program that they were delivering at the time that was specifically for at-risk youth or youth that were engaged with the justice system. So when I say at risk, I mean at risk of offending or they have been offending. That was a really positive program for my son. I will say that he, through that, he did meet a number of the young offenders, some of them who are these repeat offenders. That was scary for me as a mum because my son did come back after attending that program and said, "Hey mum, like all the other kids that are at this program are on ice." It was a large group. It was really eye-opening for me. With the background that I have and the knowledge that I had when my son started offending in one program, that this is what's going on, I really had to sit there with it and go, do I just pull my son from this program? Like, oh my goodness, is he going to come out the end of this program worse off? Is he going to travel towards these kids? I had to take a really big leap of faith in my son and in RIS and their program and believe that this was going to be something proactive for him. I had an honest conversation with him about boundaries and, you know, what I would like for him and not like for him. And also, again, he's in the driver's seat. If he was finding because of the environment, he didn't want to continue, that was fine as well. He did decide to continue. I think the entire program went from 8 to 12 weeks. Sorry, this has all got to do with young offending, and I do understand as people as victims, and I will say this, I'm a victim survivor myself. I've had a knife held against me at 16 years old whilst I was working. I've also been beaten up on the street by a youth group of young people when I was 18. So I will say that I do understand as a victim how frightening it is, how much of your liberty is taken away, how frustrating it is, how angry you are when you feel like there's nothing happening as a result. But it is important that we speak about the whole issue. Because if we're not talking about what's causing this, it's not going to stop. There are still going to be young people that are growing up. There are still going to be young people repeating these behaviours. We need to have stuff out there in the community, and I'm telling you that this stuff works. The issue is that they stopped and reduced funding for it.
We may have all gone through this in our life. And
Absolutely.
But we don't have time to stand here and give in
Anyway, calm down.
We've moved on and we're investing and we're talking about other securities today,
so we got
not of the children.
Yeah, but we can also listen to her as a parent.
Okay,
There's children that are doing the crime.
No, that's fine. I just want to add this. If we're not looking at what's happening with these kids are going to get bigger and scarier. Okay? Now, I'm a parent that's trying to work with you, not against you. I'm not trying to stick up for these kids. These kids that are doing these violent crimes need to be in a controlled environment. Okay? So that they're safe and the community
We're
is.
going to move on. We have another couple of speakers.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adele. It's hard to be vulnerable like that, and I think in the seed of that story is a couple of solutions. Now I'm going to move on quickly to another solution provider in Regional Youth Support Services that was mentioned just here. Kim, just behind me, you were mentioned there. If you could, yes. How can I say no? Please, miss?
I just want to quickly, I have to leave at 4 o'clock, so I don't think I'm rude, but I'm leaving at 4 o'clock. I've got to be somewhere else. So thank you all very, very much. I'm very easy to find.
Okay, let's let a procedural question. Yes.
Did any magistrates get invited here today?
Did any major?
Magistrates.
No.
I
Not that I'm
tried.
aware of. No. Okay.
I did try, but they all refused.
All right. Regional Youth Support Services has been around on the Central Coast for decades, solving, and I dare say, is part of the decreasing crime barrel that you referred to in Yasmin. So here's the founder and CEO, Kim McLaurin.
Okay, I know everybody's hot and it's the end of 2 hours and you've heard a lot of information, and thank you, Adele. And things are working well for you.
They are.
So I'm going to be really quick. I've got a very short presentation which I'm going to talk fast because I'm known for talking fast. And I'm here because I'm very passionate about this community. I'm a Gosford girl through and through. Love this place, and I see miracles happen every single day, and I've got an amazing team of staff that does incredible work with all government departments, from child protection through to police and other government agencies. I'm one agency, part of a big network, but we do things a bit different. So I'm going to throw this through really quick. If anyone wants information on what this is, I just want to let you know what a hub is and why it's different. I'm going to be short and sharp. So it's a 10 to 25-year-old is what we're about, and we've created spaces for young people to be able to work with kids who are at risk. So we've done a lot of consultation over our years. We were in a part-time building with the new regional libraries for 20 years. We were co-located with 10 other services in there in the school. So we've got a lot of local experience here working with kids at risk. My background, I started in detention centres, so I've worked with the kids that were murderers, they were rapists, they were pedophiles, they were children at a very young age doing some pretty abhorrent behaviours. That's where I began my career. And then I worked back out into disability services and then ended up working in frontline child protection. So I've worked with some of the hardest kids in my history, but I am so sold on targeted early intervention. It's a winner and it's very cost effective. So I'm going to read all through all this stuff, but I'm going to make this available to people. So after looking at the issues that we've got in this area, and a really good point about COVID, it changed all of our behaviours. It changed the way we learn. It changed how we communicate and engage. And we saw it, and we knew it was happening after we were closed down. We were still providing essential services full time to young people, both with disabilities and kids at risk, and young people in the detention centre systems. Oh, we're going in. And yeah, kids have disengaged with learning, and particularly that young age group and boys around that 10, 11, 12 is the most vulnerable developmental time to catch them early to prevent all this stuff happening. So what we came up with when we had our 2 years for our pilot funding doing the hub was work specifically with those kids who are most at risk. So what a hub is basically a place which is a holistic service for young people. It's not driven by funding or priorities as such. It's very much about coming from the community where the kids are in their community. It's an environment that's very supportive, it's safe, it's culturally inclusive, it's an open door policy. Any young person, any parent, any auntie, uncle, grandma, and we had lots of grandmas come in, were welcome into this space. It's a model that, if you've got a full hub, it's 5 caseworkers, intensive support workers. Adele would know about those. It's a manager, and it's a whole range of activities that are targeted specifically to those young people and what's going on in their lives. I apologise how weird this is, I'm not going to go right through it. So I want to tell you what hub is. What does it do? So a space. If you have a space dedicated to this, it can be open from 6 to 9 in the morning, doing brekkie club with the kids. It can be physical activities, it can even be transport to get to school. During the day, it's individualised support services. It's providing case management to those kids to make sure that they're getting the correct services that they need. Sorry, just go back one. That's it. We have activities and life skills during the day. And then in the evenings, you can have cooking classes, you can have night markets and engagement activities. A lot of what happens when kids get bored, they do dumb stuff. Sometimes they do really cool stuff, but sometimes they get into trouble because they need places to go and things to do. Like you and I, there's lots of pubs and clubs and things to do, but young people, yeah, we'd like to see more spaces for kids to have places and things to do. The other thing that a hub can be is an emergency service centre. So like you've got Cyclone hitting north at the moment, it actually can flip in a moment to be one of those emergency centres. Throw back one more time. The other thing it can do, we've run cafes, we've run restaurants with young people, directly getting them into jobs in the local area. We've got linkages directly with the University of Newcastle. You can have sensory rooms in them for calming kids down and have a great space for allied professionals, your psychologists, your counsellors, your OTs, those things that people need those kids to get, those helps. The other thing that you can get is you can have youth ambassadors in your area. At Terrigal, you can have host and meet sessions, you can have consultations with kids, you can have kids out there as tourism guides. There's a whole range of stuff that you can do with your local kids in a really proactive, inclusive way. No, there's no one there. I'm not asking for sponsorship today. I have a hub report. So we've got research that was done from the University of Newcastle. So for 2 years, we were funded to see 1,500 kids. And with a great team, I've got some here today, we actually saw 3,000 kids with amazing outcomes. So I've got data on everything here. If you'd like the hub report to see the research behind this, you can actually just scan that, they're all used to that one. And we can send that out to you directly. So it's evidence-based. If you want to know any more information, that's how you find me. I'd just like to add on a couple of things. The key to why the hub worked was because it was designed by our community. It was really well informed by the leaders, the adults, and the services and the kids in this area, so it worked incredibly well. We did some crime work, which was really interesting for me, with kids at high risk that were homeless, that were 10 years old, that were using ice, and the work that behind the scenes the police did to get the kids out and back into their homes with our support, with our staff, was absolutely incredible. So I've had first-hand experience in seeing some pretty amazing things happen. When you collaborate together, when you're open to try and do things differently for your community, I know it works. And I know the one kid that you lock up and put in that Baxter Centre, and I've worked in there too, it costs you $1 million. For $1 million, we can see thousands of kids a year in this. So I just want to say, you've got to check it effectively. And by doing our job, we allow Mr. Johnson, who has an amazing team, and Kirk, who please I have a lot of admiration for, they can do their job. They should be out doing the DV incidents. They should be out looking at the sexual assault cases. They need to be out doing the crime stuff. We need to be doing the stuff ourselves in the community to wrap around those services for kids. That's about it.
Thanks, Kim.
5 minutes.
Thank you for your haste and quickness, richness of information. It's a wonderful service. We do have a representative of Laurie McKinnon, the Mayor of Central Coast, just to have a little touch on what the council are doing something. Trent?
And then there will be questions and answer time.
There will be questions and
So
answers
everyone
after
will
this.
get to speak.
Just quickly, this is not an
last.
easy thing to do. What Joe and Adele have done is absolutely amazing on a Sunday to get this calibre of people, the police minister, all sides of politics, independents. It's amazing. So quickly, a round of applause for Joe again and Adele. A bit of my background. The reason why I got involved in community is, and pretty much this is my bread and butter, my passion. It's community and leadership. And you know, the reason why I got involved, I found there's a real vacuum in leadership at the moment, not so much on a community level, but in people that make real decisions. I'm a 40-year-old, I feel like I'm the youngest, the older generation that know how to do life and then had certain issues, but I'm also the oldest of the younger generation. They've got their problems themselves, and we need to get on their level and see how we can help them. I won't beat around the bush. It is a strong leadership and community problem. It's just not a preventative or a crime or a police issue. It's a whole approach that we need to take here. All levels of government, local, state and fed. We need to acknowledge that there is a problem, and we are doing that, I think. I saw Mr. Johnson's interview the other day on NBN, and that was really good messaging, direct to these kids and saying, we're here to help, we want to help. Don't go down this path because it's going to have real consequences, and we need more of that, to be honest. We need to be mentors to these people, and we aren't just the perceived leaders up here. You guys are leaders too. Every single person in this room is a leader, not just us. We need to put it back to the community as well. Get involved, have a chat to your grandkids, your kids, everyone. Tell them the right path, show them, mentor them, show them real leadership, get them through the system. And if they need help, help them. But listen to them. Don't just get up there like a dictator and tell them what to do. You need to listen to them. They've got problems. You need to get on their level and listen to them. I can't emphasise that enough. On a council level, I'll just touch quickly on the Strikeforce Connect, I think it's called. Back when I was in the police, we used to do this thing to target HROs, high risk offenders. And I think we need to go back to that, and I think Strikeforce Connect will do that. Things like, these known offenders have briefings on their front lawn. Target their associates, target their relatives, question them. Every time you see them, turn them over. Search them, see what they're doing. Make sure they know that you're looking at them and they're watching them. That's a preventative issue. Get them back to school, speak to their parents, relatives. We need to take ownership of it, which we are, I think. On a council level, we are working state and federal government to come up with crime prevention strategies. I met a guy the other day who's to do with AI and camera work, and he's going to approach council. He's got a really good system that's working overseas. where we can implement these in local communities like Terrigal, Gosford, Wyong, or the CBDs, and use AI to our advantage to help the police link it back to the stations and come up with these sort of strategies and initiatives. But on a local level, I think it's about mentorship and leadership, and speaking to these guys and speaking to you. You guys are the voice. Come to us.
If you go to a council meeting, you're trying to stop the community from speaking up.
I wasn't trying to stop the community, I was trying to stop you because you're very rude.
It wouldn't be an Aussie meeting without a little bit of pain. So thank you, both of you. That's very good. Thank you, Trent. I know you represent the Mayor and the big, large Central Coast. What can I ask you one thing? What are the councils specifically dealing with police and crime prevention?
We have talks, roundtables. There's one at the moment with homelessness. The local meetings that I talked about this morning is one of them, but it's something we all need to be proactive about. Admit there is a problem, and there is a problem. We are being proactive. Mr. Johnson's doing a fantastic job, and the police are doing a fantastic job. That is a resourcing issue. I'm telling you now, they're not immune to what is happening around the world. I'm suffering this from a small business perspective. Council is suffering it. There's no staff. There's no one that wants to get out and work. I can't find staff. Mr. Johnson can't find staff. The police minister can't find staff. It's a real issue.
You jabbed them, that's why. The elephant in the room that no one wants to talk about, and every one of these guys...
Here he goes again. Sorry, mate.
Okay?
As they say.
COVID-19, we've got...
Okay. Well, there's a thing about forums, and this is a youth crime forum. I know there's always connections. There's one fellow. Now we're going to... Trent was the last speaker. We are going to have a forum here where one question to one person will have a discussion, and we'll get a little bit more enrichment. We all need a bit of a breather. Take a couple of seconds before we convene with some questions. Just give us a big applause, people. I think it's worthwhile. There's a lot of people come on to yourselves as well. Now look, we're going. Here's a panel. The way I'm going to run this is quick because most people want to get out of here. They've been enriched by the... So I'm going to choose. And I may be biased, but I'll try not to be. Okay, there's a gentleman at the back here, and please address to someone. It may not be the person who answers your question, because I'll decide that.
I'd like to address my question to Daryl, if I could. I'd just like to wind back to the very beginning when we talked about stats on crime, because I don't think they're accurate. Yes, I can't dispute that the break-and-enters have gone down from 10 years ago, but what I would argue is that break-and-enters 10 years ago were fundamentally committed in the middle of the day on empty houses with no victims present. What I would say now is the ones I'm seeing and hearing of are being committed by people between 12 and 20, armed with everything between screwdrivers, knives and machetes, and going into houses at night, yes, to steal the car, but it's called an aggravated break and enter, or for the layman, home invasion. So, yes, you're probably trending down, sir, but your crime aggravation and violence is trending up.
That's a good question. Daryl.
First of all, what I will say that I was handed something in relation to COVID about investigations for crimes during COVID, so we're not going there. That's totally inappropriate under the licensing legislation. If someone comes in to be quarrelsome, they can be shown the door. So we're not going to But your observations are valid, and I'm not going to argue against that because I think you're absolutely spot on in relation to it. There was different reasons. The main reason I wanted to highlight those stats is to basically indicate that crime has come down. Community visibility back then wasn't as great, but it is now. So that's the point I wanted to make, and that's why you're all here, because crime is now more visible to you than what it ever has been, and that's why we're having the conversation. So totally agree, not going to argue it. In terms of the level of offending, there is different levels of offending in terms of there is. You're quite right. We are seeing people on CCTV. They are armed to a degree. On other occasions, they're not. But your point's valid, and I'm not going to argue against you because I think your observations are spot on. So thank you.
On another issue to another panelist. We're going back here. Yeah. Just quick.
So same issue, same panelist, but I'll be quick.
Look, I just want to say I agree a lot with what both of you said, but I don't think it's just the CCTV and the social media. If you go out in Terrigal at night, there's a lot of very intimidating behaviour. And shopkeepers are telling tourists not to go out in Terrigal past 9 o'clock on a Friday or Saturday night because it's dangerous. So I think the visibility is coming what we're seeing on the streets, not just what we're hearing about on social media. So I guess you talked about the statistics earlier, but what about statistics? Are there crime statistics on intimidation or harassment or threatened assault or anything like that? Because it feels like it's a more threatening environment than it used to be.
Good point. Carol, you're in the hot seat. You really are.
Look, it is a bit different to youth crime, the issue that you raised. You're talking more about the Terrigal nightlife. So it is different. Terrigal is very different during the day. It's very family friendly. Come night time, it's a different vibe. People are out and about enjoying the festivities that's available to them. Yet it can happen. Mixing alcohol, there is sometimes there are violent issues. What we do, and again, we can't be everywhere at once, but if there is a priority job that needs addressing, we will get there. So at the moment, we're tasking to our licensed premises to do walkthroughs. You may see us, you may not, depending on when you're there, when you're not there. We're also using other funding opportunities. I'm bringing cops in on overtime to go and do this high visibility stuff, but you may see them, you may not, but they are out there. But as I said before, I'd love to be able to promise you zero crime. I can't do it, but what we can tell you is that we are deploying the resources based on what we see. And yes, there will be assaults, and we will follow them up, but unfortunately that's what it is. But we are out there. You may not see us all the time, but we are out there.
Right, different issue. Another speaker perhaps, another panellist. Here we go.
Are there any Labor politicians here on the panel? Then I'll address my question to you. Is the current Labor government considering the possibility of changing the Youth Offenders Act so that some of these boys do not keep getting bailed out?
There is a Labor member of Parliament. Yeah. It's state, yes, and this is a state Labor member. We're referring to David Mead.
I think the Minister, I'm David Mead, member for the entrance. The Minister already addressed that. She clearly outlined that we've changed bail laws to target youth offending, and the Premier made it very clear that we're open to further changes if necessary. So the Premier will, and the Minister and the Attorney General will take that on board as things develop and we get advice from the professionals like the Superintendent here, and we will change things if required.
I'm not asking about the bail laws, I'm asking about the sentencing.
So we're referring to sentencing. We don't have a magistrate here.
That's okay.
Okay. Well,
That's
look,
okay.
I think that was a valid
The
question.
government changes the laws, not
Yes.
the magistrates.
No, true.
That's why
Okay.
they
Well-
keep, all I want to say is, may I have this? There is a core group that we know of about 20 to 30 kids who are absolutely relentless at doing this, and they are armed, and they are on drugs, some of them, and they are dangerous, and they do break in at night. I've been broken into, and it's terrifying. But the point is, while ever they keep getting bailed out and going to Baxter, and these boys have been in Baxter 3 months, three nights, 5 months, 4 months. How about 3 years if they do this offence twice? How about that? How about that? And I don't want to make it really punitive. I'm not talking about your early intervention and your youth support. This is great to get them early, 9, 10, 11. But when they've hit 15 or 16 and they have been doing this relentlessly night after night with a pickup youth behind them to haul away the stolen goods, as far as I'm concerned, give them 3 years, but put the youth supports in Baxter, in detention, and what my idea is, okay, you say to these boys, you've done this twice, you're in Baxter, but if you complete a year of school, we'll cut your time in half. And if you go out after that and you reoffend, well, you come back and finish it. Because we're treading too softly, worrying about the kids. Yes, we need the support, but the simple answer here is they need to be out of the community. It is not the community's problem. They are our problem. And it's getting worse.
I think that's a good point. It is a good point. It is a valid point. We will publish a line
I mean, by way of example, and sort of try to underline the minister's response to you about how we've changed bail laws, and that involves sentencing as well. From my own area, I'm advised in that Batto Bay area, there's been quite a drop in break-and-enters over the last short period. I was advised in terms of charges and outcomes, 9 persons of interest were juveniles. 5 of those have been charged recently. There's still 4 suspects under investigation. Of the 5 charged, 4 refused bail. Those are under the new laws. These are changes we're making. As I said, the Premier said, things are constantly under review in case we need to make further changes. But that's the result. It's going down.
Well, this will be recorded and will be reported, so perhaps parliamentarians might want to pick that up and have a debate in Parliament. Now, I have a gentleman over here. I'm going to go here. I know I won't get to everyone, but I'll get to most of them.
I don't want to sound like a vigilante, but I think that I'm not sure what I was going to say. I'm Nick from Nick and James Furniture across the road there. I'm 18 years old, and can you imagine the industrial area that I'm in and the sort of things that happen down there all the time? I just basically give them a Charles Bronson look. As you can see, I used to be 5'9", but I think I'm about 5'6" now. And in most cases, you can frighten them. I'm just thinking about, I'm showing my age there. I'm just thinking about, did I say I don't want to sound like a vigilante? But I am. But what happened to Neighbourhood Watch? And things like that, we really need to look after. Most of these kids, you can bluff them, and I do most of the time. They don't know, by the way, that I've got my golf clubs up behind my desk. I think I've made my point. And I think the police are. By the way, I want to also say that I'm the only business person that's a Labor supporter in the whole bloody world.
There you go. We've got to stand out. Thank you. Want to say one more?
But Lucy might. I think the only reason, I'm going to say this anyway. I think the reason why Lucy's not there is of the ScoMo affair. That's another story. Having said that, Gordon has been in my household, so it's going to be very difficult for me. I don't want to get into politics this year.
I already have, Nick. And thank you for your wonderful business that is supported by locals. Yeah, you go back to work. We'll come over for a sofa afterwards. Now, I'm going to go to one. Yeah, no, hang on. There's a few more that you really want to listen to. So this couple who has, yes, but before we started, this couple told their story, and I thought we'd say hello to them.
Hello. We got broken into on Christmas morning, actually. So we woke up at 3:30 in the morning to somebody shining a torch into our bedroom and rummaging through our house. They'd actually been in once, gone out, opened all the Christmas presents, come back in a second time, and were looking for those keys. And we had them locked up by fluke because they're normally out on the kitchen bench, but for Christmas reason we had 45 people coming the next day, and the kitchen bench was covered in platters and everything ready to go. So my keys were in my room and out of the way. So, but they're that blatant that they come into our room. It's unbelievable, and it was scary. And for my wife, who woke up, I was fast asleep. But it's been traumatic for her to go through that. And I'm sorry, Daryl, but I mean, I'm hearing everything you're saying, but the police have been terrible. The police have been terrible. They came out straight away, the next day. They came back out and even done the forensics and checked for fingerprints and all that sort of stuff. But then since then, we've been ringing and trying to get we have their number, direct number, and we cannot get a response. And we finally spoke to them, like say 2 weeks later, and they said because we collected shoes from these, because we'd scared them. I'd run out on the street, scared them, and they left their shoes on the road. And they were juvie shoes.
They were from the centre.
So they were from the juvenile detention centre. And I mightn't be a detective, but surely if I've got their shoes and they're straight from the juvie centre and they're size 9 or whatever they were, that it would be pretty easy to track who's just gotten out. In the last little while, maybe they'd had size 9 shoes. But anyway, maybe not, I don't know. But we continue to chase, and we've spoken to them about another situation as well that had happened.
There's a second event.
A second event, and the officer had said, oh, look, that's really important. We need to come out and get some video of that. We'll be out the next day, and we'll come and see the neighbours to get video from them, and we'll also get video from you guys. Nobody came. 2 months later, we're chasing them, and they finally rang back.
It's 2 weeks ago.
And then they just said that they don't remember any of that
Conversation.
And we've got people that were sitting in the room listening to that conversation. So.
And if I can say, all right. It's been absolutely traumatic, but from my take, the constable that was meant to be looking after our case, yes, has never contacted me. I've had to chase this particular person down. I finally got a phone call 2 weeks ago, and this constable basically said, unfortunately there was a stuff up, and our case, that what happened is when they've gone to put in our address, she's actually put the wrong number in. She didn't get the number right of our home. She denied the conversation that I had with her about the second incident, and that she was going to come out and take that off my phone. She denied that, and I actually had the phone on speaker. My father was in the room and he heard the whole conversation and she basically denied everything. And she sent me an email still denying that conversation, and I've responded back to her. But this whole experience with the police, if I can't trust that person that was meant to come and take on the case and know about the case to actually help me be safe in my home, especially when there was a second incident, I'm just a wreck. I'm constantly watching out my windows. I don't feel safe, because if I can't rely on this constable to step up and to follow through and to contact me and keep me in the loop to let me know about the forensics in the shoes. When I spoke to her 2 weeks ago and she finally called me, she actually said because of the stuff up with the number being wrong with my address, that the shoes actually weren't even put into forensics, and then unfortunately by now that more than likely they're not going to be able to actually get anything off those shoes.
No, they can.
Well, that's what this person has said, and so I'm absolutely, it is just absolutely traumatizing.
Thank you for that. I know Darryl, it's an individual case, and
what's I do? Okay. We'll talk afterwards, and we'll fix it up, right? Simple as that. So I need to know this so that I can do something about it. So we'll have a conversation. We'll fix it up. Thank you.
all right. You must have a very tight arm. You must have a very tight arm. You've done well. You've done a workout.
It's not as important a question as what everybody thinks it is. It's you might think, just a comment that I think that's the way to go. To get kids when they're younger, and I was going to ask you where the hub is, and like is it a sort of cyberspace place, or is it a particular area? Yeah. And also, if you want kids to go, do you have to drag them along, or do they? I mean, because that's the sort of thing that's good for kids. Because I belong to a church which has a very big youth group on a Friday evening, and all the kids go up there. They're often there till 9 o'clock at night, and they have great fun, and they're out of everybody's way, and they're really enjoying themselves.
Okay, Kim? Say very briefly about RIS and how to get involved and where it is.
Absolutely. I'll leave some cards up here for anyone that wants to contact or card. Referrals are really easy to do. So we've got a small headquarters based in Gosford at the moment, and we are seeking a site in the Gosford CBD for our new permanent hub that we're going to see, make sure stays there. But what we're keen to do, and there's been a lot of talk around, is to have some of the satellite hubs as well, so just smaller areas that we can access for kids. And we can do outreach as well, so we've got little minibuses and things, so we can do a whole range of activities. So it's a twofold thing. We do lots of fun stuff with kids to engage them. And as Adele said here, it's the most powerful thing is young people bring other young people in. It's still always the way that we get the most kids is through that connection. So they have good experience with us and they're in trouble, so they'll bring their friends in and they'll bring their friends in, and it's a really lovely way it works. So yeah, in short, we're in Gosford at the moment. We're seeking a hub site. We'd like to get the old Gosford Library site. Plug in there, little council, here we go. And we'd like to have it for free. So I'll do the work, I'll fit it out, I'll fix the building. But yeah, so we would like to have a permanent site in Gosford. But yeah, certainly do outreach and be in other areas. And when you get RIS, you don't just get RIS, you get all the services. So it's not just about RIS. This is about having a community support network around these kids.
We're very, very lucky to have you in the area. Now, I'm not very lucky because I have to choose from some very particular faces, and I have to try and remember who's had their hand up. Oh, is that the local? Are you biased or not? No? Okay, here we go.
G'day, I just wanted to say that I had a very similar experience to the couple in front of me, where I reported an incident to police. I was told that I would be contacted the next day. That was in 2023 and I'm still waiting. So, what measures are actually in place within the police force to ensure that reports are followed up? And follow-up question also, at what point does a statistic become a number in your statistics? Is it at the point where 000 is called, or is it at the point where a police officer types it into a computer? When does it happen?
Good question. Okay. Question, thank you. I'm getting my stats up.
Basically, it's the report that goes into our COP system, as we call it. So once the incident is logged, that's where we collect all the data when they run the report. So it's once it's in the system.
So if I report something via Crime Stoppers, does that automatically go in, or does a police officer have to take it from Crime Stoppers and key it into the police system?
So if you report something via police, think of that 131444, that operator will put it into the system. It should give you an event number.
So is it safe to say that if we don't get an event number, it hasn't been recorded?
I would ask the question, what's my event number? And if they don't give you one, I think you'd be asking, well, where's this being recorded? Because you get an event number is what you get when you're reporting a crime.
So back to the first question now.
First question is we have our procedures our victim follow-up procedures is that you should get a follow-up within 7 days. So if that hasn't happened, well, then I need to look at it. But that's our procedures.
So how do we get to you?
Well, I'll say this, I'm one person, and I've got many people that can help me. Okay, so we'll give you those details about where you can get to us. You can write to me basically. Okay? Or if something's happening at the time that you need to speak to someone, you can ring up and speak to the sergeant. Okay? And ask to speak to the sergeant to clarify what's going on. So if we deal with things at the lowest level, then they'll be dealt with quicker. And that's what I would prefer, that we deal with them at the lowest level. Because they get to me, if you're writing to me, it may be that it gets to me a week later. I would like that if something's wrong and you're not satisfied with something that's going on in your world, you ring up and you speak to our inside supervisor. Okay, and that's through the Gosford Police Station number. So please take that on board. But look, I can only apologise if that's the case, mate. Our procedures are there, and if they haven't been followed, I apologise. But if you'd like to have a chat afterwards, more than happy.
So it's not reported if you don't get an e-number?
If you're reporting a crime, you get an event number.
So if we don't get the event number, it's not reported? Because we've often reported things, but not got the number.
If you're ringing up about something, and it could be what we call a concern for welfare or something, that goes onto our dispatch system. So that's a different system. When we're recording the actual crime, whether it be domestic violence, or breaking or stealing, that goes into our COP system, and that's where we get all our crime data from. Just to make that distinction. Thanks for the question.
Right. I'm going to do one. There's a gentleman right up in the back corner. You haven't seen him. Oh, right up, or a woman right up in the back corner. Here we go.
Hi, I'm a business owner in one of the local communities. So I've had this same business for 5 years. I've experienced theft, obviously very minor compared to what some people are experiencing. But this is the first 12-month period where I've actually been fearful for myself and my staff. I hire lots of young staff members, mainly females. I've had to have my partner come and make me and my staff feel safe, because my question to yourself, Daryl, is at what point am I able to call the police when I am very confident that I'm calling for a preventative measure for protection? When I know that the group, and I think it's similar to the group that you were talking about, I know that they're carrying weapons and they are relentlessly coming into my store. Yes, they're stealing chocolate bars, but their behaviour is like a hyena pack mentality. And it is like I have been in tears to normal customers. As you can hear, it's upsetting to talk about now. And I've had a similar experience to this couple now, where it's just falling on deaf ears. It almost sounds, maybe we have the same officer. And I'm ringing up for, I need help, they're in town. And I've now got a group chat with all the other businesses. I've got about, I think about 40 male community members who have told me, if you message on this WhatsApp, I will come down. I'm 2 minutes around the corner. I will help you. But also I'm worried about what type of community members, no offense to anyone, but I'm worried about what could occur in them trying to protect me, and then all of a sudden an adult member is in trouble with the police for using too much force. So we were at the point where we were taking matters into our own hands, but it's almost, where's that preventative safety when I'm stabbed? Or like, is that when you come? Or is it, can I call and say, I'm trying to prevent a physical confrontation?
Very good question. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. Harold, you're really getting grilled. Here we go.
Look, thank you for the question. Look, the short answer is, if you feel concerned by what's occurring, you call us. Please call us. And depending on what's going on, if there's no other jobs going on at that time, your job will be the priority, okay? But depending on what other jobs are going on, we've got to have resources, we have to prioritise. Now, I don't want that to be a cop-out, but it is a prioritisation system. But if you are concerned, and if there's some sort of violent behaviour or something, it'll escalate. So we need to know exactly what's occurring so that we can make the best decisions about what jobs. But if that's the only job going at that time, we will go to that job. That will be the priority job.
He got there faster and he lives 40 minutes away.
I got there quicker when the officers came. They told me that I needed to be careful that these kids carry knives. And I was a bit shocked that the police officer was telling me that. I was like, well, if they're carrying knives, what do you guys, what is your job? Like, aren't you supposed to...
Well, that's why. That's why I'm saying, please call us. Okay?
We did. We called them. I got there first with this one incident. And then I approached the police officer and said, what are you guys doing about it? He said to me that I needed to be careful because they're carrying knives. I was like, well...
I can't speak here and say what they were doing or what took up that priority at the time, but it is a priority basis. So again, I want you to call us. If you feel that way, please call us.
Now, it's 4:30. We've gone more than half an hour over time. And I know there are questions out there. These people here are going to hang around, hopefully, many of them, and you can also approach some of the people who've asked questions and talk tonight or today. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you, Joe, and the co-organisers. And in fact, I'll get Joe to close off, because I think you've done so much work, you and your co-conveners. It's only fair. Thank you.
Sorry guys that we've all run out of time. I would have liked everyone else to have a little bit of a say, but there's been too many questions and I wasn't expecting to go for so long. I want to thank everyone for coming, everyone for speaking, everyone for being polite and patient, except for that one person up back there. And I just can't help stressing, you need to report these matters to the police. As Daryl said, make sure you get your E-numbers, but report. If you don't report, the police don't know what's going on and they can't help us. Thank you. Joe,
the elephant who isn't in the room is a kids representative. They aren't here.
Yeah.
Who has asked them? What are your needs? What are your wants? I was a teacher in the Central Coast for 30 years. I've seen the waft and wane of children in the 80s. Everything was stolen to an order at the Terrigal Hotel. You know, you went back there, or you went down to the Phil's place on the corner where the Shell service station was. Yeah, that's where your fishing rod was and all that sort of stuff. You knew it. But today, I've had 3 incidences in the last week. One with a grandmother of 9 children who was head on Terrigal Drive, 2 P-platers racing to try and get to the space. She now is 10 weeks in a hospital. She now has to pay for a lift in her brand new unit. She was moving into that next morning. So the victims are there.
Yes, Greg's my next door neighbour, so I'm very sorry about that.
Okay. What's happening is the kids have changed. The kids have changed. And we've seen it. The water is different to what it was years ago. Now, with e-bikes and scooters, who's responsible for the registration or legislation of those things? Because they are now being used as weapons. They're weapons of intimidation. I've got a friend who was bashed, brutally bashed, on the ground, kicked and everything else, this last week, because he had the effrontery to tell the kid, hey, you're doing the wrong thing, get off your bike. His father then turned up and then beat the hell out of him.
Okay.
Yeah,
that is a very poignant point, and it is taken. There are no direct youth representatives here, as in young people.
We need to get to the kids before
let's
they go to
think about another forum in that regard, and come on that.
We have another lady involved for education.
Yes, good point.
Oh, actually,
Good point.
on that note that you just said, unfortunately, I asked principals to attend, and the Department of Education banned them from attending. So I did ask them to attend, and they were told they were not allowed to attend.
Now I'm keen to wrap this up, because there are people who have to go places. I'm also keen to thank you all very much, and the Erin Elise Club, and all the co-conveners who've come along today. And thank you very much, Joe. One more round of applause for Joe and her team. Thank you. There'll be a report about it in the newspaper.